There comes a time in every person's life when they are forced to confront an unsettling truth. Life in all its vast complexity seems absurd. The chaos of existence, the seemingly random nature of events, the relentless pursuit of meaning, all of these seem futile when faced with the cold, indifferent universe. The world does not offer us clear answers, nor does it provide us with an overarching purpose. In the face of such overwhelming uncertainty, what are we to do? Albert Camus, the philosopher of the absurd, offers us a way out of this existential trap. He does not ask us to ignore the absurdity of life, to pretend that meaning is readily available, or to succumb to despair. Instead, Camus challenges us to confront the absurd head-on, to embrace it, and to create meaning in a world that provides none. In essence, Camus tells us that the struggle itself, the very act of living authentically in an absurd world, is where meaning can be found. But how can we overcome the absurd? How do we navigate a world that seems indifferent to our existence? The concept of the absurd is at the core of Camus' philosophy. The absurd, as he defines it, arises from the confrontation between human beings' inherent desire for meaning and the universe's indifference to our struggles. We yearn for purpose, for clarity, for some guiding force to give us reason to continue. Yet the universe remains silent, offering no answers. It is in this gap, between our longing for meaning and the universe's refusal to provide it, that the absurdity of life is born. Camus presents us with an unavoidable reality. The world does not care about our search for meaning. It continues indifferent to our suffering, desires, and dreams. This realization can feel crushing, even paralyzing. But Camus argues that the key to overcoming the absurd is not to escape it, but to confront it directly. We must accept that life is absurd, and in this acceptance we find the freedom to live authentically. It's easy to understand why many people turn to religion, ideology, or escapism in an attempt to avoid this absurdity. These systems promise meaning, answers, and a sense of control. But Camus warns us that this is a form of self-deception, a denial of the absurd. Instead of searching for illusory meaning, we must face the universe's indifference without flinching. By doing so, we reclaim our freedom. To overcome the absurd, Camus offers a radical solution: revolt. Revolt, in Camus' eyes, is not an act of defiance against the world. It is an acknowledgement of life's absurdity, followed by a refusal to succumb to despair. It is the act of choosing to live fully in a world that offers no inherent meaning, to continue the struggle despite the lack of ultimate answers. Revolt is the acknowledgement that life is absurd but still worth living. It is a commitment to live authentically, to create meaning in a meaningless world, and to find purpose in the act of living itself. In Camus' worldview, revolt is not an outward rebellion against the injustices of the world, although that can certainly be part of it. Revolt is a personal, internal commitment to live with dignity and purpose despite the absurd. It means continuing to seek beauty, to experience love, and to pursue our passions, even when we know that these things are fleeting and that the universe is indifferent. Revolt is not about finding answers. It is about living fully in the face of the unknown, about choosing to engage with the world on our own terms. For Camus, this revolt is a form of freedom. While the universe may not provide us with meaning, we are free to create it for ourselves. This means taking responsibility for our lives and actions. Rather than waiting for meaning to be handed to us, we must actively create it in our everyday lives. It is in this creative act, this defiance of the absurd, that we begin to find our purpose. Perhaps the most iconic image of the absurd in Camus' philosophy is that of Sisyphus, the Greek king condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down each time he nears the summit. This image, though seemingly tragic, becomes a symbol of how we can overcome the absurd. Sisyphus's punishment represents the futile and repetitive nature of life. No matter how hard we try, we are always confronted with the same obstacles, the same struggles, the same frustrations. But Camus turns this myth on its head. In his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, he argues that Sisyphus embodies the absurd hero, someone who is fully aware of the meaninglessness of his task, but continues to push the boulder up the hill anyway. Camus writes, "The struggle itself, too, is enough to fill a man's heart." Sisyphus, in his eternal struggle, becomes a symbol of rebellion and resilience. Despite the futility of his task, he continues to live, to struggle, and to find purpose in the process itself. In Camus' view, we are all like Sisyphus. Our lives may seem meaningless at times and the world may seem indifferent to our struggles, but it is through our own revolt, our refusal to accept despair, that we find meaning. The key is not to wait for the universe to provide us with answers, but to create our own meaning through our actions, our relationships, and our passions. Like Sisyphus, we may never reach the summit, but it is in the struggle that we find the richness of life. The final step in overcoming the absurd, according to Camus, is to embrace the freedom that comes with the recognition of life's meaninglessness. When we acknowledge that there is no inherent meaning to life, we are freed from the constraints that society, religion, and ideology impose on us. We are free to live authentically, to make our own choices, and to pursue our own values. This freedom is not a passive experience, it is an active one. It requires us to take responsibility for our lives, to create meaning in the face of the absurd, and to embrace life with all its uncertainties. Living authentically means rejecting the false comforts of easy answers and instead embracing the complexity and ambiguity of existence. It means acknowledging that life is difficult, that it is often painful, and that it is filled with uncertainty. But it also means recognizing that we have the power to create our own purpose, to find joy and meaning in the fleeting moments that make up our existence. We do not need to wait for meaning to be given to us. We can create it in our everyday lives, through our relationships, our work, and our pursuit of personal growth. Camus urges us to live fully, to embrace the absurd, and to find meaning in the struggle itself. The world may not provide us with answers, but that does not mean we are powerless. By embracing our freedom and living authentically, we can transcend the absurd and create a life that is rich with meaning, no matter how fleeting or uncertain it may be. The absurd is a challenge that every one of us must face at some point in our lives, but it is not a challenge that we need to fear. Instead, it is an invitation to create meaning in a world that offers none, to live authentically in the face of the unknown, and to embrace the freedom that comes with accepting life as it is. Camus' philosophy teaches us that it is not the absence of meaning that condemns us, but our failure to create meaning for ourselves. The absurd is not a force that defeats us, it is a force that frees us. So, I ask you, how will you respond to the absurd? Will you surrender to despair, or will you rise to the challenge and create your own meaning? The choice is yours, and the time to act is now. Embrace the struggle, embrace the freedom, and live authentically in a world that offers no answers but gives you the power to create your own. To understand Camus's perspective on life and the absurd, we must first confront the very notion that everything we have been conditioned to believe about meaning is false. For most of us, life has been about seeking answers, about finding purpose in the chaotic whirlwind of existence. We seek structure, reason, and higher powers that promise to provide the meaning we desperately crave. But what happens when we realize there is no overarching purpose? What happens when we are forced to face a world that is indifferent to our existence? This is where the absurd enters. The absurd arises when we understand that life's chaos and meaninglessness do not align with our deepest desire for purpose. The universe continues to unfold with its own rhythms, unaffected by our individual struggles. And that very realization is the source of the absurd. Life does not owe us clarity. It does not offer us a cosmic purpose. And yet, despite the overwhelming nature of this realization, Camus argues that the absurd is not a curse but a gateway to freedom. The freedom comes from embracing the absurd, accepting it, and refusing to submit to despair. To face the absurd is to acknowledge the futility of our efforts to search for meaning in a world that does not provide it. But rather than retreating into nihilism or surrendering to hopelessness, Camus proposes that we engage in revolt, a persistent, conscious effort to live fully despite the absence of inherent meaning. The revolt is not against life itself, but against the temptation to accept false comforts and manufactured answers. Living authentically in the context of the absurd is about choosing to live as though meaning were to be created and not given. This is a profound act of freedom. It places the responsibility of meaning-making squarely in our hands. Camus's philosophy asks us to reject the expectation that the world will supply us with a predetermined path. Instead, it calls us to create meaning in our own lives by forging our own responses to life's uncertainty. It invites us to live passionately and authentically, driven not by a search for preordained meaning but by a deep commitment to create meaning as we go. But embracing the absurd does not mean simply resigning ourselves to a life of empty pleasure or shallow distractions. On the contrary, it means cultivating a life of awareness, of conscious action. The absurd hero is someone who knows that the struggle itself is what imbues life with value. The act of pushing the boulder, of repeating our efforts without ultimate success or completion, becomes the most honest form of living. Sisyphus, in his Eternal Task, exemplifies what it means to embrace life fully, to live with awareness of its absurdity, and to create meaning through sheer persistence. Camus's view of life is radical precisely because it acknowledges the deep human need for meaning but refuses to indulge in the false narratives that promise easy answers. The absurd forces us to reckon with the universe's indifference, yet it simultaneously grants us the freedom to shape our own reality. In choosing to live without the need for an external meaning, we step into our own power. We take responsibility for creating the meaning that we live by, regardless of whether it is ultimately important in any cosmic sense. This personal responsibility is where the challenge lies. To live authentically, to fully embrace the absurd, we must let go of our attachment to external validation and expectations. We no longer seek permission from others, nor do we live in fear of rejection or judgment. Instead, we begin to create our own narrative, to align our lives with what feels true to us in the moment. Camus teaches us that life is not a preordained script to follow, but an open field where we must write our own story, guided not by external forces but by our inner compass. But of course, this kind of living is not for the faint of heart. The path of nonconformity that Camus describes is not an easy one. It requires constant vigilance, awareness, and courage. To be truly free, we must consistently reject the comfort of easy answers and the safety of blind conformity. It requires confronting the fears that arise when we step outside the established boundaries of society and embrace a life that is uniquely ours. Every time we face the absurd, we are forced to make a choice, to succumb to despair and resignation, or to rise above it and create something meaningful in the face of uncertainty. In Camus's view, the struggle is not only inevitable, but it is where life's richness lies. To be fully alive is to engage in this struggle, to continue fighting against the tide, to pursue authenticity with courage, knowing full well that the world does not care about our struggles. The absence of cosmic purpose is not something to despair over. It is something to celebrate, for it grants us the ultimate freedom, the freedom to define our own purpose. It is in this space of freedom that true fulfillment can be found. By embracing the absurd, we step outside of the frameworks that limit us and into a world of infinite potential. This brings us to the heart of Camus' existentialism, the recognition that freedom lies in our ability to shape our lives without looking for external permission or validation. The world may offer no inherent meaning, but this lack is precisely what empowers us to create meaning on our terms. To live authentically in a meaningless world is not an act of surrender, but one of empowerment. It is an act of creation, of consciously choosing to create meaning in a world that offers none. As we continue to navigate this absurd world, we are constantly confronted with the question of how we will respond. Will we continue to search for meaning in external systems, in religion and ideology? Or will we confront the absurd directly, embrace the freedom it offers, and create meaning from within? This is the true challenge of Camus' philosophy, not to avoid the absurd, but to live fully within it, to engage with life on our own terms, and to find meaning in the struggle itself. In this act of creation, we find our true selves. We begin to live in a way that is authentic, that reflects our deepest desires and values. The absurd does not defeat us, it frees us. The universe may remain indifferent, but we are not powerless. By embracing the absurd and living authentically, we transform our lives into a meaningful journey, a journey that is uniquely our own. It is this journey, fueled by the revolt against meaninglessness, that defines the human experience. We are the creators of our own meaning, and this is the ultimate freedom. So I ask you, how will you respond to the absurd? Will you let it defeat you, or will you choose to rise above it, to live authentically and to create your own meaning? The power to shape your life is in your hands. The time to act is now. Embrace the absurd, live with intention, and create a life that is true to you. This is the path to true freedom. As we continue this journey through the absurd, we come to realize that it's not about the destination, nor about finding some ultimate truth that will answer all of life's questions. The beauty lies in the act itself, in the persistent daily creation of meaning. The absurdity of life is not a reason to give up, but an invitation to live more fully, more authentically. It forces us to step out of the comfort zone of societal expectations and question what we really want from this fleeting existence. And in this questioning, we find the courage to choose our path, not because it leads to some grand purpose, but because it's the path that is uniquely ours. Every day, we are given the choice to either sink into the void of meaninglessness or to rise and embrace the absurd with open arms. To live authentically, to truly take ownership of our lives, means acknowledging the lack of predetermined purpose and deciding that despite this, we will give ourselves the freedom to create our own. This freedom is not always easy to embrace. The world around us will continue to press its standards upon us, urging us to conform to its rules, its ideals, its image of who we should be. But the question remains, are we willing to live in defiance of those standards? Are we ready to challenge what is expected of us and to create a life that feels real, that feels true, despite the chaos that surrounds us? This is where true freedom resides, in the space we carve for ourselves in a world that offers no guarantees. We are not prisoners to our past, to societal pressures, or to expectations. When we acknowledge the absurd, we unlock a deeper form of freedom, the freedom to live not in pursuit of meaning that the universe owes us, but in pursuit of our own truth. This is the act of creation, not just of art or words, but of our very lives. Living authentically in the face of the absurd means engaging with life on its own terms. We can no longer wait for external forces to provide answers to our existential questions. Instead, we must create the answers ourselves. We must ask, what do we value? What do we stand for? What will we leave behind? These questions do not have simple or concrete answers, but it is through our pursuit of them that we begin to carve out meaning in a world that offers none. It's tempting to seek escape from the weight of the absurd, to distract ourselves with superficial pleasures or to turn to ideologies that promise salvation. But in doing so, we forfeit the opportunity to truly live. Camus teaches us that the only way to rise above the absurd is to confront it, to accept that life will not provide us with easy answers, and then to choose to live anyway. This is the most profound act of rebellion. To live fully in a world that offers no meaning, to stand firm in the face of chaos and refuse to be consumed by it. This act of rebellion, of embracing the absurd, is not a passive resignation, but an active engagement with life. It requires courage to keep pushing forward when everything feels meaningless, when the weight of existential doubt threatens to pull us under. But in that very struggle, we find our strength. By refusing to let the absurd defeat us, we tap into a deeper well of power. The power to create meaning, the power to shape our reality, and the power to live authentically, in full recognition of the absurdity of our existence. So, what does this mean for you, for the way you live your life? It means that you have the power to define your own path. It means you are free to choose your purpose, to choose what matters most to you, and to align your actions with your deepest values. In the face of a meaningless world, you have the freedom to create your own meaning. This freedom does not come from avoiding the absurd, but from confronting it directly and choosing to live in spite of it. It is this radical freedom that allows us to live a life that is full, rich, and deeply personal. But with this freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to live intentionally, to make choices that reflect who we truly are, not who others want us to be. It is the responsibility to carve out a space for ourselves in the world, to define our own meaning, and to engage with life on our own terms. The world may not offer us a purpose, but that is what makes our existence so unique. We get to decide what purpose, if any, we want to create. And this is where the paradox of the absurd lies. The very thing that might seem to limit us, the absence of meaning, is, in fact, what frees us to live fully. The absence of external purpose allows us to live without constraints, to act from a place of true freedom. We no longer need to conform to society's expectations or follow a path that others have laid out for us. Instead, we are free to explore, to discover, and to create, without the pressure of predefined answers or limitations. The journey to live authentically in a meaningless world is not a smooth or easy one. It is fraught with challenges, with moments of doubt, and with existential crises. But it is in these moments of struggle that we discover the depth of our resilience and the power that lies within us. By accepting the absurd, by acknowledging that life offers no inherent meaning, we are freed to create our own purpose. And in doing so, we experience the true power of being alive, a power that comes not from the pursuit of answers, but from the act of living fully, authentically, and unapologetically in the face of the absurd. So the question is no longer, what is the meaning of life, but rather, what meaning will I create for myself? Will you choose to embrace the absurd, to live authentically, and to create meaning in your own life? The choice is yours, and in making that choice, you step into your own power, your own freedom. The absurd does not have to be a barrier to your happiness or fulfillment. It can be the very thing that frees you to live a life of your own making. The time to start is now. As we move forward, it becomes clear that the absence of inherent meaning in life does not signify defeat, but a profound opportunity to live with greater intention. The realization that life is absurd allows us to break free from the illusion that we need to find some predefined purpose handed to us from the outside world. Instead, we discover that the power to create purpose lies entirely within us, and this power gives us the freedom to live life according to our own terms, unshackled by societal norms, expectations, or even our own self-imposed limitations. What does it look like to truly embrace this freedom? It means shedding the need to rely on external validation or external sources of meaning. It means taking full responsibility for our actions, for the life we choose to lead, and for the values we decide to uphold. Camus teaches us that there is no external force waiting to provide meaning, and while this reality can seem daunting, it also frees us to shape our own existence, to live fully in a world that refuses to offer the answers. This is where the beauty lies. Meaning is something we create with every decision, every choice we make, every relationship we build. We may not be able to control the randomness of the universe, but we can control how we respond to it. We can choose to create meaning in the small moments, in the work we do, in the way we interact with others, in the pursuit of our passions. Life does not need to have some grand cosmic significance for it to be valuable. Its value comes from the authenticity with which we live it. The absurdity of life does not take away from its beauty. It highlights it, showing us that life is precious precisely because it is finite, because it does not come with a guaranteed script. This freedom, however, comes with its own weight. To live authentically is not always easy. It means that we must constantly confront the discomfort of uncertainty, the discomfort of not knowing exactly where we are going or what the future holds. But in that discomfort lies the space for growth. It is through embracing the unknown that we become more resilient, more flexible, and more capable of adapting to the unexpected turns life throws our way. In embracing the absurd, we let go of the need to control every outcome, and we open ourselves to the richness of the unpredictable journey. As we navigate this journey, there is one undeniable truth. We cannot escape the fact that life will present challenges. Pain, loss, and hardship are inevitable aspects of the human experience. But Camus invites us to confront these hardships with a sense of defiance, to acknowledge them without surrendering to them. In facing life's difficulties with openness and authenticity, we transform the struggle into something meaningful. The struggle itself, as Camus writes, becomes enough to fill the human heart. It is in the act of engaging fully with life, with all its chaos and uncertainty, that we find the most profound meaning. When we shift our focus from the idea that meaning must come from external sources, we discover the power of personal agency. We realize that we have the capacity to shape our lives, to take responsibility for the paths we choose to walk, and to redefine what success, happiness, and fulfillment mean to us. This freedom comes not from waiting for meaning to be bestowed upon us, but from actively creating it through our choices, actions, and interactions with the world around us. But of course, this process of creation is never linear. It's not about achieving a state of perfection or finding a singular purpose that will sustain us for the rest of our lives. Living authentically in a world without meaning is about embracing constant evolution. It's about engaging in the ongoing process of defining who we are, not through the lens of external expectations, but through our own lived experience. The meaning we create is not a destination, but a continual journey, shaped by the choices we make and the relationships we cultivate. As we engage more deeply with the absurd, we begin to see the world in a different light. The seeming chaos of existence becomes less a source of frustration and more an invitation to create something new, something uniquely ours. Life's unpredictability becomes an opportunity for creativity and self-expression. We can shape meaning in the moments between the big events, in the small decisions, the daily actions, the brief interactions with others. It is in these moments that we craft a life that is authentically ours, a life that reflects our true values, desires, and passions. In embracing the absurd, we are not surrendering to nihilism. We are not saying that life is meaningless and therefore not worth living. Rather, we are acknowledging that the absence of meaning is not a cause for despair, but an invitation to create meaning on our own terms. Life is precious precisely because it is fleeting, because we have no guarantees, and because we are free to define it for ourselves. The absurdity of life gives us the freedom to live fully, to take risks, to dream, and to create. So, where does this journey take us? It takes us to the understanding that our lives are ours to define. The power to create meaning, to shape our destiny, is within our reach. We are not bound by the expectations of others, nor by a world that offers no inherent purpose. We are free to explore, to learn, to grow, and to embrace life in all its complexity. We are free to choose how we respond to life's absurdity, and in this choice we find meaning. Now is the time to embrace this freedom. Now is the time to live authentically, to confront the absurd, and to create meaning where there is none. The world may offer no inherent answers, but that does not mean we are powerless. The struggle, the creation, the act of living itself, these are the things that give our lives meaning. It is through embracing the absurd that we unlock the power to live fully, authentically, and with purpose. The choice is yours. How will you respond to the absurd? Will you rise to the challenge, embrace the freedom, and live a life that is uniquely yours? The time is now. Embrace it. As we continue this journey of embracing the absurd, we begin to realize that every step forward, no matter how small or uncertain, is an affirmation of life itself. It is an acknowledgement that despite the chaos and unpredictability, there is value in our struggle, in our pursuit of meaning. And while life may seem devoid of inherent purpose, it is through the act of living authentically that we begin to see that purpose is not something to be found. It is something to be created moment by moment, choice by choice. This creation of meaning is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process, one that evolves as we evolve. As we confront the absurd, as we accept that the universe is indifferent to our desires and struggles, we are free to create a life that aligns with our deepest values, desires, and passions. In a world where nothing is guaranteed, the act of shaping our own meaning becomes a powerful expression of our humanity. It is the ultimate freedom, to live without the constraints of prescribed norms, to carve our own path, and to find purpose in the pursuit itself. But this journey is not without its challenges. The road to authenticity is often fraught with discomfort. We may encounter doubts, fears, and resistance from both within and without. The world around us may continue to impose its expectations, and we may be tempted to return to familiar comforts, to seek meaning in the external, in the tangible. Yet in these moments of resistance we find our strength. Each challenge, each moment of uncertainty, is an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to creating meaning on our own terms. Living authentically in the face of the absurd is not about achieving perfection or attaining some final state of enlightenment. It is about embracing the journey, with all its ups and downs, its contradictions, and its complexity. It is about accepting that life is not a straight line, that it will always be messy and unpredictable, but that it is precisely in this messiness that we find the richness of existence. In choosing to live authentically, we are choosing to engage fully with life, to embrace it in its entirety, without hiding from its uncertainties. At its core, living authentically in the absurd is about finding freedom. It is about letting go of the need for external validation and embracing the power of self-expression. When we stop looking for meaning outside ourselves, we begin to recognize that it has always been within us. Meaning is not something to be discovered in the external world, but something to be created from within. And it is in this act of creation that we unlock our true potential, not just to live, but to live fully, with purpose and authenticity. This understanding brings a deep sense of empowerment, the realization that we are not beholden to any outside forces, that we do not need to seek approval or validation, opens up an entirely new realm of possibility. The absurdity of life becomes not a source of despair, but a platform for self-expression. It is a space where we can redefine who we are and how we engage with the world. The world may be indifferent, but we are not powerless. We have the capacity to shape our reality, to make choices that reflect our true selves, and to create meaning in the face of the unknown. In embracing the absurd, we are no longer waiting for life to provide us with answers or a predetermined path. We are free to walk our own way, to chart a course that is unique to us. This freedom, however, is not an escape from responsibility. On the contrary, it is a call to take full responsibility for our lives, for the meaning we create, and for the choices we make. It is a challenge to live with intention, to reject the comfort of complacency, and to step into the uncertainty with courage and purpose. As we continue this journey, we may encounter moments of doubt, moments when the weight of the absurd feels overwhelming. But in these moments, we must remind ourselves that the struggle itself is enough to fill our hearts. The act of continuing to live, to choose meaning in the face of meaninglessness, is what makes us human. It is in this struggle, in the ongoing process of creating and redefining ourselves, that we find the truest form of freedom. And it is this freedom that allows us to live authentically, to live fully, and to live without regret. So I ask you, again, how will you respond to the absurd? Will you choose to surrender to let it defeat you? Or will you rise to the challenge to embrace the freedom it offers and to create your own meaning? The choice is yours. The time to act is now. Embrace the absurd, embrace the uncertainty, and choose to live authentically with intention and purpose. In doing so, you will discover a life that is rich with meaning, not because it was given to you, but because you created it. The absurd does not have to define you. You are the one who gets to define yourself. Live, create, and embrace the power that lies in the freedom of the absurd. In the face of the absurd, there lies a profound freedom, the freedom to choose how we respond to life's meaninglessness. We are not destined to be victims of an indifferent universe. Rather, we are the architects of our own existence. The absurdity of life does not diminish its worth, but instead, it invites us to create our own meaning in the midst of uncertainty. Camus calls us not to surrender to despair but to rise with rebellion, to live fully and authentically, to forge our own path in a world that offers no inherent direction. To embrace the absurd is to acknowledge that life will not provide us with easy answers, but it gives us the ultimate freedom to create our own purpose. The struggle itself becomes the meaning. The challenge is not to find an external reason to live, but to define it for ourselves. It is the most profound act of liberation, to live as we choose, to express ourselves authentically, and to find meaning in the process of living itself. But the question remains, are you ready to take this step? Are you ready to confront the absurd and embrace the freedom that comes with it? The time to act is now. The world will continue to try to impose its expectations, to tell you who you should be and what your life should mean. But you have the power to reject that. You have the power to create meaning from within, to define yourself on your terms and to live a life that is authentically yours. So I ask you, will you rise to the challenge? Will you embrace the absurd and create your own meaning in the face of life's uncertainties? The freedom to choose is in your hands. You can keep waiting for the world to give you answers, or you can start living with intention today, embracing the chaos and creating your own purpose in every choice you make. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for a sign. The time is now to step forward, embrace the absurd, and live authentically. Your meaning begins with you. Your journey starts today. The world may be indifferent, but how you choose to live is entirely up to you. Take the first step into the freedom that Camus speaks of and create the life that truly belongs to you. The absurd does not define you. You define it. Now start living.